Have you guys ever done therapy before? I have.
Yeah.
So, and I know that the best ones that I've worked with, they don't ever prescribe anything. Like they never, like it's
100%.
frustrating as hell because you want them to, but they won't do it, right? They make you go through the process of self-discovery, right? And so the reframing piece of a salesperson that you're talking about, Craig, is very similar to what a therapist will do. Is they'll kind of take what you said and they'll say, well, what I heard was, and then they'll share it in a different way that might be reframing it a little bit. And you're going, well, no, that's not what I meant. But now that you say that, that makes sense, right? So again, they're helping me to self-diagnose what's going on and figure out how to solve, I can't solve the problem if I don't know what the problem is. So I think great salespeople can do that really well, right?
I didn't see the countdown.
Yeah,
You're
man,
on.
we're live.
You're
Like,
live,
just
man.
6 seconds in.
Awesome.
Totally.
Welcome. Totally. We'll cut that out.
Why?
Welcome. Yeah, right? Every time I go to start, Drew says something.
I know. He can't stop talking.
Welcome back to Whiskey is for Closers. Craig Johnson here with our founder, Steve Caton and Drew Epperson from Alteza. Today, I want to start us off with a pattern. We've been doing this for a long time, and by that I mean sales. And every great closer, everyone does the same handful of things. They ask better questions than the average rep. They wait longer than other people do to fill the silence. And they surface things the prospect didn't realize they were going to actually say in that meeting. They reframe the problem before they offer any kind of a solution. And at the end of the day, that's not selling, that's therapy, right? And the more I sit with that, the more I think the next 10 years of sales talent is going to look a lot more like a sales therapist with a quota than the salespeople we grew up watching. So today's episode is a little bit of a thesis. The best closers don't close, they diagnose. And if that's true, almost everything that we have learned or taught about sales is kind of pointed in the wrong direction. Steve, Drew, let's go with this episode of Whiskey is for Closers.
Yes.
But first,
this is going to be good.
Yeah. I mean, let's start with where we need to start. What are we drinking today?
Yep, priorities are straight over here. Thank you very much. Steve, do you want me to go ahead and go first?
Yeah, man.
All right. So I'm pulling out the big guns today because I knew this topic was coming. And this is one of my absolute all-time favorites. And it's one of those where it's like you can't always find it. And when you do find it, you make sure you buy not just one of them, a couple of them, right? And that is why today I am representing Basil Hayden, but it's not just any Basil Hayden, people. This is a red wine cask finish. You already knew where I was going, Craigers, and I love it. And that's exactly.
It was in a cask?
Whoa, cask finish. So that is what I'm enjoying today. Thank you very much.
Oh, man, would never have guessed, Drew.
And for those of you who are not watching, I was going back and forth with the bottle into the camera.
Yes,
there you go.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh. That is a really solid choice and very difficult to find, like you said. So, yeah. So what are you doing, Craig? What's your drink today?
You know, Steve, you were there with me. I busted out the Creature Comforts. This is the Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey from Creature Comforts.
Creature Comforts.
Gotta give another shout out after all the time there a couple weeks ago, and then last time with the Summer Shandy, which is fantastic.
Yes. Amazing. Yes. How is that particular vintage of whiskey there? Is it good?
It's good. It's good. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I prefer their other stuff, but this is, as far as whiskey goes, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm just doing something that's kind of middle of the road every day, man, but it's a solid choice. I've always enjoyed my Elijah Craig.
Good name.
It's just a good, just a really good, solid, everyday whiskey. And my wife went to Costco recently and got one of those giant bottles of it. So it's like, I like that. So I just had to pour some Elijah Craig today.
Yeah,
Nothing
that's
too
good.
crazy. Just a good, solid choice. Cheers.
Yep, that's good. That's good. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Boom.
And can we just give a shout out to Costco real quick? They don't pay us. Nobody pays us.
Nobody.
But I just want to be clear that Costco, you are awesome. Thank you for your $1.50 hot dogs and for everything else you have provided
Totally.
in my life. You're amazing.
That was a really weird infomercial.
That felt like a
This is
prayer. It was
brought to
almost
you
like
by
a
Drew's
prayer.
love for Costco.
It's like
Costco isn't paying us, but Drew's love for Costco is never ending.
I'd be like thanking God for those things. He's thanking Costco.
Listen, I can wait. They have supplied my life with a lot of important things, and I'm grateful.
Drew got that dog in him.
He's got that Costco dog.
I just barked on a podcast. Let's that be known. All right.
Can we get a clip of that? Can we get a clip of that? Because I feel like I'm going to be able to use that at some point in time.
Oh my gosh. That was so funny. I thought you were going like into our topic with that Costco thing, and you're going to share something about whiskey or bourbon, but no, it was just, I want to thank Costco
for all the finer things in my life are thanks to Costco.
You say a prayer every night to Costco, and I thank it for the plentiful bounties it has provided for me.
Oh my gosh. All right. So I think this is leading us somewhere that is also kind of interesting. Well, no, like think about how great your experience is, Drew, with Costco, that it made you just want to randomly talk about them on a podcast that had nothing to do with that experience. You didn't even tie it back. I think at the end of the day, like great experiences sell, right? And so whether it's a great experience going somewhere or it's a great experience with a sales professional on a call, that makes a significant difference. So I'm curious, a little bit of a warm up. What is one of the best questions a salesperson ever asked you as a buyer?
I got one.
Anything
Steve,
come to mind?
Go ahead and, one for me.
Yeah, I'm
does,
still
actually.
thinking. Yeah, man.
All right. So I was talking, we were trying to figure out, it's actually a pretty big decision that I had to make for myself. And it was something that was going to impact our whole entire family. And the individual looked at me and he asked me this question. He goes, are you running from something or are you running to something? And I sat there and I thought about that question and I go, I don't know if I can answer that right away. And it was one of those reflective questions that as the sales individual, he did a fantastic job of not trying to get me to make an immediate decision, but to go, hey, when you make this decision, just know that it is directly impacting an entire family over here. So when you think about this, ask yourself that question. Are you running from something or are you running to something? And I thought that was such a profound, that was asked of me 13 years ago. And that question was so impactful that it has stuck with me all these years later. So for me, that was a question that got me thinking, because again, it was bigger than just the sell he was trying to make. This individual knew that it was impacting a lot bigger portion of my life. So I found that intriguing when he asked it.
That's really good, man. Yeah, I think, for me, similar to what you were sharing, Drew, the question I'm going to share wasn't in a sales context. Nobody was trying to sell me something, but the guy who asked the question is an amazing salesperson. It's what he does. He was a very, very seasoned, very experienced mentor to me. And we were having a conversation about a career move I was in the middle of making. And he'd been helping me through the process, and he'd been asking me a lot of questions about what I was looking for in my next job opportunity. And I had shared with him that I'd gotten real with him and said, look, I feel like I don't want the next decision I make or the next job that I choose to be about the money, because I feel like I've made that decision several times and it hasn't worked out very well for me. So I want it to be rooted more in purpose and more in something that I really care about and less about the money. He had heard me say that and several other things related to that. And then what happened was I get to and this is so, I know this happens to other people besides me, but it feels like this happens to me all the time. There was nothing to choose from for months. I mean, seriously, like 2 or 3 months of just nothing. And then all of a sudden there were 3 offers that came in this and within 24 hours of each other. And,
Right.
and I'm a man of faith. So I'm praying through this whole thing and I'm thinking, well, what God's going to do is he's going to put the perfect offer in front of me and that's going to be the only one and it'll be really clear. Right. Well, nope, not so much. Here's 3. And there were 3 very different offers, very different companies. One of them was very lucrative from a financial standpoint. One of them was pretty good. And then the third one was not so good from a financial standpoint. But the third one was very much in my wheelhouse in terms of my passion. And so I was sitting here with this guy and I was wrestling with it and I was justifying these other offers. And he looked at me and he said, Steve, he goes, I've heard you say multiple times that you wanted the next job to be about purpose and
Hmm.
about mission and not about the money. Were you lying to me?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What a
Yeah.
question.
Right?
Wow. What's interesting about what you guys shared is both of those. I asked specifically about like a salesperson, but you went to just people that ask great questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is really the drive of kind of what we're getting at. So, you know, when you observe a great salesperson that's really doing their thing well, what are they doing that the average rep doesn't? Right? So maybe Steve, let's start with you. Just start with one thing, because I know we'll go further than this, but let's start with one thing that comes to mind that they do that other people don't, that the average rep doesn't.
Well, I mean, this is just baseline obvious, but unfortunately it's patently true. And that is listen, right? Before
Mm,
talking. I mean, that is just so foundational. And yet I think it's 80% or more of the sales people that I talk to, that I interact with, don't listen. They don't. They just pitch. They just talk. And if they do listen, the listening is done as a tactic, not something that's rooted in authenticity. So they're
yeah,
asking you questions to make you think that they really care. But the first moment they get to pivot into the pitch, then that's what they do.
yeah, yeah. They're not really paying attention.
No, they're not really. They're not asking questions and then really listening and saying, "Okay, I heard you say this, so let me ask more about that." They don't know how to peel the onion. They just ask the question, check the
Yeah,
box, go to the next question. But a lot of times they don't even do that. It's crazy. Like they just can't. I don't know what it is about. I think it's a lot of time. I think it's. I don't want to like go too far down the rabbit hole, but at least my theory on it is it's rooted in insecurity, because
mm,
I think a lot of people are afraid if they ask deep questions and they get really meaningful answers, they won't know what to do with that. Like, what do I do with that? Like, somebody
sure.
just shared something real. I don't know what to do with that. So let's not even go there.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
You know,
Wow.
we used to call that like being able to hold space for somebody. And that's exactly what you're talking about, holding that space of sitting there going, okay, I'm going to listen. And as I peel it back, and this kind of leads into what I was going to say, Craig, is that
Yeah.
good salesperson knows how to challenge conventional thinking,
Mm,
right? Because people are going to come in and they're going to go, I need a salesperson. Okay, how many? True, that's why I'm having a conversation with you. And I got broken this. I just need to generate more sales. And what we know is going, okay, when you typically say that, this usually means that there's something bigger that's going on, and I'm trying to figure out what that bigger thing is. And a good salesperson sits there and goes, they challenge, and they don't challenge to be a jerk. They don't challenge to, come across like I'm smarter than you, but they challenge in the sense of peeling that onion, like you were talking about, Steve, and holding that space of awkwardness. And what is that awkwardness? It's really silence. And what is that silence? The silence is more about, you asked me a question that somebody hasn't asked me, and I haven't sat with what that response is. And if I'm really introspective and if I'm really connected to trying to figure out what the true issue is, what the true problem is, then I should be sitting here reflective. I should be sitting here going, I don't know the answer to that. Or if I'm an outward kind of processor, I'm starting to process outwardly. Okay, tell me more about that, Drew. What do you mean by that question? Well, what I mean by that is usually when I see somebody come in here, there's usually the problem isn't the initial problem we thought it is. It's usually something else. And in order for us to get there, I have to challenge this conventional thinking that it's just a sales problem, right? And I think that really is where kind of the magic starts to happen.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And I'll keep riffing on that. And this is another answer to the same question, Craig. What do the really great salespeople do that the average salespeople don't? And Drew said it. He said, just almost in passing, he said, I don't think I have the answer to that. And there's the average salesperson is terrified of that they don't have the answer. Whereas the really experienced salesperson understands that having all the answers is actually not a good thing, and being vulnerable enough to say, I'm not really sure I have the answer to that. I want to think about that. And that actually is a trust building move, but most salespeople are afraid to make it.
Yeah. No, that's really
it's
good.
so interesting because in that conversation, I've actually had one about 3 weeks ago, and the conversation I had was in a different company that I'm selling for, that I actually push them to go, you don't need to use us. And they go, wait, hold on. Is it your job to sell me on using you? And go, no. No, because after asking all these questions, they're like, actually, we haven't been asked these kind of questions before. And then you sat there and you said, here's the reasons why I think. And they ended up coming back going, we want to use you guys. And that was, to your point, Steve, of what you're saying, it's a trust building exercise, because at the end of the day, my job is not to sell you on using us. My job is to help go, what's the totality of what it is you actually need? What you said you came in here and saying you needed, and what you actually need may not be us. It may be something else. And then when you finally work through the whole thing and you sit and you hold that space, right? And you just sit in the silence, because how many times have we sat there, asked a question, and the room just goes silent?
Yeah, a
and
lot.
You sit with that, right?
Yeah, a lot.
You sit with that, and you're
You
okay
have to.
with that.
Yes.
And why do you have to, Steve? Like, tell me, why is that important for you when a room goes silent? Why do you have to sit with that in your perspective?
Well, so I'll share a really crass answer, and then I'll share a more profound answer. So the crass answer is because I was taught early on, when I was my very first kind of legit sales job, I was taught that when you ask a very pointed question, that the next person who speaks loses. Have you ever heard that?
Yes.
Especially when you hear about like closing techniques, right? Like if you ask for the order and then you talk again, you just lost the order, like that kind of thing, right? So, but there's something to it, right? There is something to that, because I literally, I remember the guy who taught me that. I would watch him do it, and it was so awkward. It was hilarious to watch it, because he would do it, and then he would sit there and he would just stare at the person across the table, and they wouldn't say anything and he wouldn't say anything. It was like this game of stare down. And I would be sitting there literally like trying not to laugh, right? And then they would speak, and he was right. So there's that. But I think the bigger, kind of more profound answer to it is that we have to give people space to think, right? Because in a lot of times, if we're asking really profound questions, they don't know the answer to it, right? So the tension that I was talking about with salespeople not having the answer, sometimes the buyer, the customer doesn't have the answer, and you need to actually give them the space to process things, right? To process it and chew on it. And if we interrupt that flow with talking, then we just rob them of the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, that's good. Guys, as I'm thinking about, our theme, sales is therapy, one of the lines that, comes to mind is we're not trying to prescribe, right? Salespeople are trying to connect their solution to somebody to somebody. We have to diagnose what the problem is before we prescribe whatever the solution or the antidote is.
Amen.
We have to ask where it hurts before we offer the medicine, right? And one of the things that I was thinking about as you guys were saying that is really great salespeople surface what is unsaid. So what's beneath the surface.
Yeah.
They're earning the right to ask the questions that the prospect hasn't allowed themselves to ask. It's the deeper thing. And Drew, you were kind of touching on that as you were sharing. And then one tactical thing, and I'm curious if anything else comes to mind. If not, we'll jump to my next question. But I think great salespeople are really good at reframing the problem in their own words, so it shows A, that they were listening, and B, that they understand what was being said. Anything else you guys would add to all of this?
I mean, since we're making the analogy, drawing the analogy with therapy, think about what therapists do. Have you guys ever done therapy before? I have.
Yeah.
So, and I know that the best ones that I've worked with, they don't ever prescribe anything. Like they never, like it's
100%.
frustrating as hell because you want them to, but they won't do it, right? They make you go through the process of self-discovery, right? And so the reframing piece of a salesperson that you're talking about, Craig, is very similar to what a therapist will do. Is they'll kind of take what you said and they'll say, well, what I heard was, and then they'll share it in a different way that might be reframing it a little bit. And you're going, well, no, that's not what I meant. But now that you say that, that makes sense, right? So again, they're helping me to self-diagnose what's going on and figure out how to solve, I can't solve the problem if I don't know what the problem is. So I think great salespeople can do that really well, right?
Well, and I think, in addition to that, sometimes what can be tricky as salespeople is learning what is challenges that are just part of the process of building a business and going through that. And what are some of the challenges that are self-inflicted? And learning how do we approach that? Because those can be difficult conversations, just like a therapist who's sitting here going, there are things that I can help with that are going, hey, this is part of just owning a business. This is part of growing. We know where plateaus are, right? There's patterns that are really obvious that we can help you work through. And then there's other ones that are going, you realize you're the challenge, right? It's that song by Taylor Swift. It's me, I'm the problem, it's me. And you're going, yeah, hey, dude, like there's a challenge there. And, if we're going to have to go into a relationship here where we come in and support and help you, we have to identify that. We have to own that. And then we have to be willing to go, I'm willing to work through those. And that can be difficult at times to walk through, but a good salesperson surfaces that, asks those questions. Are we willing to own where you need to own that? Because the only way we're going to help scale through that is by identifying that, owning that, and then working through that. And then we can come alongside and help you grow through that if you're willing to do those things.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Guys, it's been a very interesting journey with Whiskey is for Closers. You were there.
I heard about it.
And we've had some really incredible guests. And it seems that even along with this topic, there is a theme with some of the people that we have been, some of the founders we've been talking to. I think about Piper Moore, Hillary Spreitzer, Ben Weaver, Jamie Tates, Dan Klein, Clay Hicks, Ben Albert. And there are more, but specifically in the lane of kind of therapy or coaching,
Mm-hmm.
who kind of comes to mind that really strongly does the thing that we were just talking about? And it's not necessarily just, we were talking about this earlier, not necessarily just about sales, but they're just good at applying these types of principles to their conversations.
Which of those guests? Yeah, man, that's a
I've
great
got
question.
one.
Yeah, go.
Sean O'Shaughnessy.
Yeah.
When
Ooh,
Sean.
when we had him on, and it wasn't even just that, and I know all of us have had the privilege on this podcast to not just experience that podcast, but to experience working with him, right? To experience
yeah.
him in his element of training, selling, doing the actual work in the trenches every single day. And I've had the privilege where he was the sales leader in one of the accounts that I was in, and I've been on lots of calls. And so experiencing him being able to ask the questions, and that particular experience was one where, there was some challenges that we faced inside of that particular one. And to watch him kind of walk through that, ask the tough questions, not just even ask the tough questions, but there was been even times where I would have taken action immediately. And he was like, nope, we're going to sit back. We're going to wait. We're going to, wait for the right timing. We're going to let this thing breathe. We're going to let this thing kind of flesh itself out. And in certain cases, it took care of itself. And in other cases, the right timing had to emerge to have the conversation. And so I think that was a great example of watching somebody who knew how to navigate and have those tough conversations beyond sales.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's good.
Sean's a master. Such a good guy. That he's like when you think of great salespeople, he's one of the ones that comes to mind, and he's not a salesperson anymore. He's more of a sales leader, but that comes from years of being a salesperson. So I think about the Jamie Tate's when she talked about how your sales problem might actually be a culture problem. That stood out to me in a big way because
Mm,
I remember being a part of an organization where we shifted from this and this is kind of this was software, right? And in the software sales world, it's really, man, Craig, you've been in it.
yeah,
It's brutal, and it's about the numbers and the dials
absolutely.
and all the stuff, right? And if you're a salesperson that works and operates in the way that we're talking about, and you get put into an environment like that, it is very uncomfortable because you're not wired that way. You're not wired by numbers. You're wired by what you were saying earlier, Drew, which is this concept of serving people, right? And helping them find
Yeah.
the solution, even if it's not my solution. So I was in a software company where the culture was very much that transactional, numbers-driven culture, and we were able to shift it and shift it to being about the ideal client profile and what was true about the ideal client. So, what was true about the ideal client? What was it that we were uniquely equipped to do for that ideal client? And so basically as a leadership team, which I was a part of, we basically said to our salespeople, we do not want you selling to someone that doesn't fit that dynamic. Right. So if you're talking to somebody and they're ready to buy, but you know that they don't fit this very specific criteria that we have for the kind of people that use this software effectively, you are not allowed to sell them. And if you don't sell them, if you say no to them, we will actually we are going to reward that behavior. We're going to recognize and reward that behavior, which is going to be very counterintuitive, but we're going to do it. And everybody was like, that's BS. I don't believe it. And I kid you not, most of the salespeople, when I had that conversation with them, they looked at me like I was an alien. And I said, guys, I promise you, this is going to happen. And I have full buy-in from the owner of the company, and I support it. And so this is how we're going to operate. And only one or two of the salespeople actually tested me on it or tested us on it. And we did exactly what we said we were going to do. They came to us and said, I said, no, here's why. And we actually made a big deal about it. And we recognized them. We celebrated it. They were rewarded for it. And then the rest of the salespeople went, my gosh, they actually mean it. And then everybody immediately shifted and sold in the same way. And bro, I've got to tell you, that rocket ship ride that happened after that was incredible. And it was rooted not in so much great salespeople, it was rooted in the culture and the fact that
Wow.
we actually defended the culture and we rewarded the culture and the people that were in alignment with it. So I
Yeah,
remember when Jamie talked about that, it took me back to that, and I was like, man, it's true.
that's super good. That's super good. Ben Albert sticks out to me as well. Hillary Spritzer as well, but
Yeah.
Ben Albert, such an interesting story. And his focus was really on the unexpected questions, right? And I think, even just from a practical standpoint, Clay Hicks with H7 Connect Serve Ask, it's such a good framework that I think really fits into what we're talking about here. Sales is therapy. I know it's kind of a cute idea or term, but that's often the way that we're approaching these conversations is we're kind of cracking open the hood with founders and helping them diagnose what's actually going on within their business.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, where does this metaphor break down, right? Devil's advocate seat, where does the therapy frame fall apart or fail for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go first on this one, Drew. I think two things immediately come to mind for me. One is actually just the reality of what you're selling. So it's not a good or a bad thing; it's just an is thing, and that would be if you're selling something that's just purely by the nature of it more transactional,
Yeah,
then this is overkill for a transactional sale, right?
100%.
So I think depending on what you're selling, this could all absolutely just fall apart. Like seriously, if I'm going to go buy a new Telluride and I got the salesman trying to peel back the onion of my personal life, I'm going to be like, "Can I just buy the freaking Telluride? Thank you very much. Just tell me what the price is."
Well, well, Steve, go with that, right? You're dealing with a rep that keeps asking questions and is
Yes.
belaboring the process. At what point do you tell them, okay, drop therapist mode, just
Yeah.
ask for the deal?
Yeah. And that's where I was going to go. The next place where this kind of falls apart is really, it's driven by the persona of the person that you're talking to. So
Hmm.
there are just people out there that are wired in such a way that the more you do this, the more irritated that you get. And right? I mean, they just do.
Yes.
And we don't want to, like, we have to be like self-aware enough to recognize that this is happening. Like, I've got somebody that just wants to cut to the chase. And yes, I do need to understand what's going on so that I can be sure that we are a fit for them. But once we have diagnosed that and we understand it's a fit, then get cut to the chase. Like, do yourself and that person a favor and just get to the brass tacks so that they can make a decision because they're ready to do that. And so I think that's the other place where it breaks down is when you have somebody that's just their way they're wired. You got to recognize it and throttle it back. But you still have to get your minimally viable information to understand whether the fit is still.
Drew, where
You
does the
know,
metaphor break down for you?
yeah, to me, I see that where it works well is when somebody is still processing and trying to figure out what the challenge and the solution is. That's where this thing really works well. Where it breaks down is when somebody who's really clear. No. I know where I've been. I know where I'm
Yeah.
at. I know what I need. Here's why. And I do it succinctly. I know exactly what the challenge is. And you're going, that might be the easiest sale I've ever had to make in my entire life. And it's not because I'm awesome, not because I'm great, not even because I ask really good questions. It's because that individual has done the hard work already. They've
Yes.
done all that work to get to that point. And so at that point, I'd go, okay, I just need to know the basic information in order for us to be successful. And now we can go, boom, here you go.
Yeah.
So to me, that's really where I start to go, this person's done the hard work, right? This person knows
Yeah.
where they're at. So that's where I start to see where it starts to break down. But that's really where the salesperson, the intuition, I'm sensing that. I
Yeah.
know that. I see that. I'm clear. They're clear. Here we go. It's served up on a platter. Let's roll.
Yeah. And Drew, where my head goes on that, because I agree, there are definitely people who are self-aware. They really do know what they want. And you can surface the fact that they understand what we're talking about when there's complexity involved in the sale. But, how do salespeople stop from going too fast to actually do the due diligence still within the sales process or the sales cycle. So we hear the right triggers and we don't skip steps or skip ahead. And then later on, we find out, oh, we missed a bunch of stuff.
He just said it, didn't he, Drew? Like seriously, in asking the question, he actually said the answer. Which did you know you did that, Craig? Did you do that on purpose?
No.
Well, you
No.
did. So you mentioned sales process.
Yes.
And criteria, right? This is where the
Bingo.
discipline and the science of sales is such a beautiful thing. If you've actually built a sales process that has very specific criteria in it,
Yes.
then you can go look at that and go, we checked all the boxes. So yes, this feels like a bluebird landing in my lap. And I go look at the process and go, it is actually a bluebird and I'm going to capture that thing.
Yeah, that's
You
good.
know,
That's exactly it.
Yeah, that's it. A brilliant way to ask the question. Even you weren't trying to make it a leading question, but it sounded like
I
one.
really wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Like,
but
what about the sales process?
the operations guy asked about sales process. Shocker.
No, like literally, I will say, because prior, Steve, to working with you, this has been something that has been like going through this process with Alteza, creating the process. It has been one of those going, okay, like this is clear and evident. This is the process we go through. The skill cannot be processed out, meaning the skill of going, okay, that individual said this. That's not part of my process here. Tell me more about that. Like that cannot be like built or baked into a process. That's just something that comes with the experience of somebody who's done this enough, right? And so having that process is really the key of being able to go, hey man, we checked all of these things. This really, we know is at the end of this call, if we can accomplish these things, this is the outcome clearly defined. Steve, you talked about that with your salespeople and your past experience there. When that is clear, the process is defined, we can get to this and go, gosh, that was a slam dunk. Now, how many times has that actually happened? That's not been a ton for me.
No.
It's been
That's why
more
they
of the
call it a
latter
bluebird.
part.
That's why it's called
Exactly.
a bluebird. They don't happen you don't see them a lot. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Guys, our audience obviously is varied, right? But let's just kind of say for the founder who's still trying to figure out sales within their company, whether they're still doing the selling themselves or they just know they need to put some additional attention into the sales function. What is, something they should be taking away from this conversation that they can apply in their next sales meeting or their next meeting with a prospect?
Founder themselves.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or to apply to their team.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. What do you think, Drew? I got some thoughts on this one.
When I think about this and I put myself in that founder seat, they're juggling so many different things. So when they hear this stuff that we're talking about, I sit there and I go, okay, as a founder, I'm going, okay, sounds great in theory. Love your stories, Drew and Steve and Craig. But I have a million things that I have to, when I leave sales world and I step into ops world, I step into marketing world, I step into delivery world, I step into list out all the things that they have to do. It becomes it can feel overwhelming to sit there and think about how do I go into therapist mode and do all of that. It can go, hey, man, listen, do you want to buy or no? Like if I'm thinking about, putting myself in that founder position, you sit there and go, do you want to buy or no? Because to be honest with you, I got other people I got to talk to, I got to deliver, and I got to blah. And what I would push back on that is say, 100% hear you and 100% know exactly what you're talking about. But what we're not saying is become an efficient therapist. What we are saying is before you step into a call, take 5 minutes, slow your process down, decouple from what
Slow
the
your
task you slow it down
Slow your
and go right and go, what does this person need to hear from me? That's it, right? just 5 minutes. And this is where I would highly suggest building into your calendar this buffer zone and not doing calls back to back to back to back. Because when you find yourself in that position, you just get into robot mode and you just are going, what do I have to do? Repeat information and going, no, let's not do that. 5-minute buffer zone, deep breath, slow everything down. What does this person need to hear from me? Now I'm going to step in and just listen for that. So that would be my thing that I would suggest.
Dude, that's like super good stuff right there, Drew. You're learning, man. You're getting good at this stuff.
Little bits at a time, Steve.
I mean, so I'll just piggyback off of that because you had some really good stuff there, Drew. So let's talk about the calendar. I'll start there. So not only should you, and this is like really practical stuff, which founders need, right? Founders don't need more theory. They need like, what's something I can do tomorrow? This is an example of that. In addition to creating the buffer between the sales calls, create days of the week that are just about sales. Because being in that mindset that you're talking about, Drew, requires it's a different mindset, a different mental state than I have when I'm doing all the other things that I have to do as a founder. So I have found it really helpful to say, I'm going to try as best I can to make Tuesday and Thursday about sales. Those are my sales themed days. And so that's where the sales calls are going to go. And then I'm going to create the space that you're talking about, because I know I can't do that on Monday because here's all the stuff I do on Monday. Here's all the stuff I do on Wednesday. Here's the stuff I do on Friday. But these 2 days, I'm just going to be about sales. So I think that is another kind of extension of what you're talking about. It really is a big deal, like, because you have to be able to go into that day understanding this is the day that I'm going to slow it down. This is the day where I'm going to think about slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And if I've got all this other shit going on, I can't do it.
Yeah.
It's not possible. Right. So I think that's the first thing that I would say to dovetail from what you're talking about. And then the other thing I would say is that all of the hustle and the grind that you talk about is actually, it should be a sign that you need some help. You need some help. You need to start offloading some things, right? Now, when it comes to offloading sales, I will caution founders against doing that too soon, because if you haven't sat in the sales seat too long enough, you don't really understand who is your ICP. What is their problem? How does my solution actually solve the problem? What are the objections that I hear over and over and over again? Like, there is no better market, what do you call it? What they call that, market research, right? There is no better market research than actually sitting in the sales seat and selling your shit.
Yes.
Like, if you don't do that, you are missing out, bro. So you have to do it. But then when it gets to the point where you've had the success and like, I know how to close, the market accepts what I'm bringing to the table, this is working. Now it's time to say, this might be time to offload it, to bring somebody else in who can do that for me so that I can go do all those other things I need to do. And then you need to have the self-awareness of understanding what is the one thing that I can do that nobody else can do. And I need to go do that and then let somebody else do the sales piece. So those would be the two thoughts I would have, kind of
That's good.
springboarding off of what you said.
That's good. I think it's, Drew, you highlighted this. Everybody's wearing all the hats.
Yeah.
There's so much that needs to happen and so many different roles that you have to fill. The code switching between them can be really, really challenging. And, because of that, you guys made a joke about it earlier. Like, I am on the operations side, so I'm pretty good about managing my time and time blocking. But Steve, I remember when I first came on with Alteza and you shared your calendar with me for the first time, and I saw the themes that you put at the top of each day.
Yeah.
Right. And that was a new thing. And so just kind of referencing, like, you actually do that in your calendar. You put a theme at the top of each day and you mark it as free so it doesn't block the whole day. Right. But like, that was just like a click in my head to go, that would be super helpful. And I've done that ever since. And the other thing I'd like for you, Steve, for maybe people that haven't heard it before, because you breezed over it, Talk about slow is smooth and smooth is fast, because it's such a good story and example, really, of just how to lead a business, how to run sales. Like it's just such a good layer. So unpack that for us.
Man, we could do a whole episode on that one.
100%.
I mean, for sure. So yeah, the whole premise of it is actually borrowed from the Navy SEALs, right? They're the ones that have that mantra. And if you think about how they operate, then it comes to life pretty quick, right? They're very slow and smooth at what they do, and they are deadly, right? So when you take that and you apply it into sales, I think one of the things that I think about is that we founders, we want things to happen quickly, right? We want things to happen quickly. And what we miss in that is that any sales is like so many other things in the business is it takes time to actually do it well. And the only way you do it well is to, like you were saying, Drew, you got to slow down long enough to be able to process what's going on, kind of run it through our brain and understand and analyze what's happening and what are we learning from it, so that you can then take that and apply it and make it better, right? And the adaptability piece that is required for growth in general for all founders and for especially for sales success requires that we create the space to slow down and actually take in the information, process it, figure out where the patterns are, what is it telling us, and how do we change based on. And if we're just grinding, then there's no space for that. And then we just make split decisions, right? Really quick decisions about things. And that doesn't work in our favor when we do that. And then I think about when I think something happened for me recently and I shared it with you guys. We had a pretty, profound conversation as a leadership team about this. And I was driving home from some time in Pensacola and I was listening to the story of Buc-ee's. And the story behind Buc-ee's was just an absolute perfect illustration of what we're talking about here, with this guy who started this convenience store gas station in Texas, and all he had was this one location for 20 years. And but he was like very intentional about making it amazing. Like, how many people actually care about making a gas station and convenience store experience amazing? No one that I know, except for maybe this guy, but he cared about it. So, he paid attention to his customers. He's like, I feel like most convenience stores and gas stations have the really scary restrooms. We're going to fix that problem. And then it just went from there, like bad food, scary restrooms, all the things. And then, so he did that for 20 years. And he talks in this podcast I'll listen to about the things he learned and how he applied those things just a little bit at a time. And then all of a sudden, the idea was birthed about the travel center, right? And he took all the things that he had learned over the 20 years and he built the first travel center. And now we all know about Buc-ee's and the incredible success that they've had and what an icon of that is. And we didn't know that was 20 years in the making. We just thought, wow, that just sprung out of nowhere, but it didn't. And most successful businesses don't. And I think we have to remember that as owners, is that our job is to show up every day, to do the absolute best that we can, to always be open to the things that are coming at us that we can learn from, and to slow down long enough to be able to actually receive it, process it, and do something about it. And then over time, something amazing will probably happen. But if we're always in a hurry and we don't create the space, it's not.
To go off of, I love that story. And when you shared that, I actually went and listened to the podcast, Steve, and really appreciated that whole message. And I think there's kind of a stigma that salespeople have. They're fast talkers. They try to slip one over. They try to just hurry up and get things across the line, right? It's kind of this thing that just comes with it.
Yeah.
And I know for me, when I find myself speeding up, many times it's rooted in, I know where this is going. I've seen this pattern before. I know where this is ultimately heading.
Yeah.
So let's just, in my mind, I'm thinking this, let's just skip past all of this because I already know where this is going to end up. I already know where this is going. And so I prescribe when the point isn't the prescribing and the point isn't getting them where they need. The point is the process of getting there.
Yeah,
The
that's
point
good.
is every
right.
micro step along the way is what creates the transformation. The transformation isn't done in the solution that we provide, in the product that we give, in the service that is given to somebody. That's not the transformation. The
Yeah.
transformation is in that one question that can completely make them see the whole experience differently. And if I get caught up in I can see where this is going, I've had this conversation a million times, I already know what their answers are probably going to be, that's where we lose. But if we can
Yeah.
stop and keep myself from anticipating the pattern, even if though it may be the same pattern that it always been, that's not the point. That's not the magic. The magic is creating that space for that person to go on that journey with you and to transform along the way. And then when they get to that point where it makes sense, that's when the beauty and the magic starts to take place, not for me, but for them. And that's really
Yeah.
where true salespeople live out the dream, live out the experience, and live out the fulfillment of slowing down and going on the journey with them.
Dude,
Drew, that's so
that's
good
so
because
good.
it's so easy to when you do this all the time, just over and over and over, and it can feel like you're having the same conversations. So we want to jump to the end because, like you said, we know how this is where this is going to go, but they don't. The prospect doesn't. And I think that's a great reminder. Like, we're not paid to convince people. We're paid to diagnose, right? Convincing is what happens when we have earned the right to be trusted.
Yeah.
And if we just jump to the end, we didn't earn the right to be trusted with anything.
Yep, exactly right. And for all of the whether it's the business owner or it's the sales leader that is leading a team of salespeople, and you listen to this and you go, man, I would love to have a team full of people that sell like this. But then the thing you still pay attention to more than anything is how many dials, how many meetings,
Yeah,
how many proposals. I mean, I'm not saying those things don't matter, but if that's the thing
they
you
do. Yeah.
track more than anything and you're busting people's chops because they didn't do the number of dials, then you know what? You get what you deserve. You're not going to be able to attract this kind of salesperson, period.
100%.
Dude, that is really freaking good. And I think, Steve, what is important is going, how do you track something like that? Like, how do you quantify? How do you measure that kind of world? Because sometimes that can feel a little bit more squishy, right? So if I'm putting
Yeah.
myself into somebody who's measuring something, I'm sitting here going, well, it's just way easier for me to look and go, well, how many dials did you do? Well, how many deals did you close? Again, super valuable, important, necessary. We do that, right? So that is definitely part of the conversation.
Yes.
But when you're looking but that's the transactional part of the conversation. Again,
Correct.
needs to be measured, but understanding what category that fits into. That fits into transaction. What we're talking about over here is how do we humanize the transaction? How do we take somebody and not make them feel like another number, another quota, another process you're walking through, another person that I'm selling to? How do I make you feel like you matter? How do I make you feel like I hear you? And what we can bring may or may not work, but let's figure that out together.
Yeah.
That kind of experience, my God, changes everything.
Yeah, 100%, man. And if you're tracking all those metrics, which you definitely need to, like we said, we're not like running away from accountability here. What we're saying is let the metrics actually inform whether you're selling this way or you're not selling this way, right? So for instance, if I have a bunch of prospects coming into my sales pipeline and having discovery calls and they're not going beyond that, what's happening? Like, okay, are we basically attracting the wrong, is marketing bringing in the wrong leads, right? Are we not getting the right ICP? So whenever we have these really meaningful conversations on the front end, most people are opting out or we're opting them out because they're not a good fit. That could be happening, right? And then later in the sales process, if we're not converting, there's something else happening there, right? But so we need to be paying attention to the metrics and then asking really intelligent questions about it. So we're not saying to run away from that. But when you sell this way, you need to look at those metrics differently, right? You're not looking at them purely as just numbers and transactions. You're looking at them as, what story is this telling?
Beautiful.
That's good. That's good. Well, guys, I think on that note, as you know, we always end every episode with a toast. King Snake, we're all back. Why don't you lead us out, man?
All right. Everybody got their drinks?
Barely. I barely have.
I love it. All right, here we go. To the leaders, to the coaches, and the founders who had the courage to tell us what the real problem was, not the one we showed up talking about. And to the great closers who know the goal was never to sound smart. It was to help someone finally see what's actually going on. Cheers.
Cheers. It's good.
Beautiful as always, Mr. King Snake.
Absolutely. Well, guys, this episode was brought to you by Drew's Love of Costco. Going to Costco? Drew's probably already there.
$1.50 hot dogs.
Look, if you take one thing away from this, take this. Every great seller you have ever respected is doing sales therapy. They just didn't call it that because closer sounds a lot better than diagnostician on that business card, right? And if you are a founder or business leader still doing every sales call, ask yourself, at the end of the call, did the prospect feel pitched to, talked at, or did they feel understood? And if you can't answer that confidently, you've got your work cut out for you next week. So if you're still in that closing seat and you want that closing seat to be in better hands, hands that diagnose before they prescribe, that's what Alteza is built for. Check us out. No pressure. Let's have a conversation. Also, subscribe. Share this with a founder who you know that is still selling like this is a debate club, and we will see you next round. Diagnose before you prescribe. Next time you're at Costco, treat yourself. Get you a $1.50 hot dog. Cheers.
And a cookie.
Cheers. And a bottle of whiskey.